Tuesday. We have Agustín Arroyo here. Hey, what's up, Agustín?
First of all, you pronounced my name the right way, so you get extra points for doing that. Like, first time in my life this happens, so really excited. This feels like being on TV. Like, you're a celebrity. Come on, I've been following you for years. How is this possible? How did I get here? Super excited. Super excited to be
Let's
here.
talk about how you got here. You're doing some really cool stuff. Yeah, tell us about what you do.
Okay, that's a very
Big
tough question.
question.
Like,
I know.
yes, this feels like an interview. So,
It is an interview.
I've been around the maker community since 2013. Although, like, I was born a maker. So let's jump back to 1993 in Argentina. I was born. I was a maker. I destroyed so many objects, learning how stuff was made. I moved to Spain in when I was 9 years old. I grew up and I discovered 3D printing while I was in uni, and it changed my life. That's pretty much it from my side. Here I have some examples, but yes, basically since 2013, I've been showing, like, let's say around one project every month. So in the end, when I look back, well, first I see 3D printers and a vacuum forming machine, but I also see tons of projects. And today, hopefully, we can discuss some of the most challenging ones. And if it's
Ooh,
about
excellent.
recycling, better.
Perfect. And that is actually what caught my eye. Hey, Gustavo, what's up? Great to see our friend Gustavo Reinaga on the chat. So,
Hey, I follow you. I know who you are.
hey, cool. So you go by Flowalistic on lots of different platforms. In fact, so many different platforms. There's this Domestika channel where you're doing classes on 3D design and printing. Patreon. There's a wiki factory page for you. You've got all these tutorials for recycling plastic and stuff, and like you've got Twitter and things. So anyone who's interested in this stuff, you have lots of places to check out. And you've been doing a lot of stuff with recycled plastic and recycled cardboard. This one especially caught my eye. Can you tell us about yeah, tell us about recycling plastic and recycling cardboard and how you use them in your projects?
Okay, so many of you know about FDM 3D printing, and the first time we all discovered where PLA plastic came from, we were like, oh yeah, bioplastic, compostable, really
Yeah.
nice. So 7 years ago, I 3D printed one of my most useless designs, a low poly Pokemon, which I love. I placed it in a jar, I filled it with water, and left it outside for 2 years, and nothing changed. So I was like kind of really disappointed.
Uh,
Yes, I all my failed prints, I had them in a box. Like, one day you will be very valuable. And
uh-huh.
we jumped to the future, and in 2018, I think, or 2017, I was like, okay, let's recycle plastic. Not sure if any of you knows. Well, it's quite popular. The Precious Plastic Initiative. It's global. They have DIY super cool machines to recycle plastic, but it was a bit challenging for me because I didn't have the space, the resources, and the knowledge. Yes, that's the Precious Plastic website. I
So
love them.
cool.
So I decided to make my own, like, low cost version, which I called Plastic Smoothie. Not too original, I know, but yes, it was about recycling plastic. So basically, I took all the failed prints I had, I shredded them using a blender, which I completely destroyed. Uh, and in my kitchen oven, well, I only did that once because my girlfriend forbid me
Oh.
of using the kitchen oven again. And I started making these recycled plastic sheets, which could be used for laser cutting or whatever you want. And this one was signed by Joseph Prussia on Maker for Barcelona 3 years ago. I love this one.
So cool.
And I've been recycling plastic since then. Yes, I know. Some of you will notice a small, like, issue. Like, if this was a movie, it would be a very bad movie because I tried to make this affordable and accessible, but everything is accessible up until you reach the point where you need
Mm,
a laser cutting machine.
mm.
Yes, that's a little bit complex. I was working at a Fab Lab back then, so it was super easy for me, but not for anyone else. So the plastic smoothie project had three different stages. The first one was like create recycled plastic sheets. Then
Mm.
the second stage was making handmade molds with like I remember I purchased, well, I have one with me, a large aluminum sheet, and I cut it with some scissors. It took me hours,
Wow.
and I ended up with some sort of super DIY early molds about rotocasting molds. So I placed the shredded plastic in that mold. I put it in the oven, and every 5 minutes I had to rotate it. I got some good results there, but yes, it's accessible, it's affordable, but you need to spend hours to make just one product. So last year I was like, what if I combine 3D printing and recycled plastic?
Mm.
And that's the latest point, and that's what I'm interested on at the moment, which is I shred the plastic in very small pellets, and I
Mm.
use a pellet extruder to 3D print objects using a very large nozzle on a hacked no yes yes this side, with one entry level 3D printer. Yes, what you can see is the pellet extruder on an entry level 3D printer using a 2 millimeter nozzle.
Wow, 2
And
millimeters. And for
yes,
reference, a usual one would be like 0.4 millimeters or something?
yes, exactly. That it's crazy. You need to 3D print quite slow if you use a 2 millimeter nozzle. But compare, like, if you weight the final object, that's 3D printing super fast with a zero point 0.4 nozzle. And what I love the most, you can use pigments. Like
Mm.
that was white and natural slash transparent plastic with
Uh-huh.
some blue pigment. That's why it's not
Ah,
consistent, but I love it.
it's beautiful,
Uh,
it's very naturalistic.
yes, yes, I don't
And
need
the
it to be
little
perfect.
blobs in the stream there, it's kind of slightly irregular.
Yes, I remember I got my, like, not haters, but the first sad comments almost in my whole life. People saying, "Oh yeah, the extrusion is not consistent. You're using cheap filaments," and it was like, "Ha! It's not filaments. It's recycled plastic," and I know I'm super sad. But yeah, it's about experimenting and testing and failing and shredding all the plastic again and
Yeah.
reusing it,
Oh,
which
yeah.
leads to a whole new debate about how many times can you recycle plastic.
Yeah.
And yeah, it depends on the type of plastic. If you are recycling PLA, unfortunately, after 4 or 5 times you've reheated it, you've shredded it, it starts to crack when it cools down. But if you're using PETG or ABS, you should be able to recycle it many more times.
Oh, cool.
So I'm happy about that.
That's rad. What kind of so PETG is sort of you can get that from, like, plastic bottles, is that right? You can
Yes,
turn yeah. And I
yes,
think PLA is, like, number 5 or number 7 in recycling here in the US. And so you can look up the, like, recycling numbers and figure out what you're getting that is made of PLA or that is made of, PETG or different stuff and
yes.
shred it up.
But a couple of years ago, I met the precious plastic team because I went to the Netherlands and I stayed one week with them. And there was a very sad moment where they insisted there are hundreds of different type of plastic, and even if you use PLA, each PLA manufacturer adds different additives, especially pigments, and that changes the material properties.
Oh,
So
yeah.
they were creating these recycled plastic beams, which look great. I
Mm.
stole one from them, and I have it here in Madrid with me. And you could see how it's cracked because I think it was the blue HDP, like bottle caps.
Mhm.
The beams were made out of that. Like the blue caps didn't mix well with the pink ones. So in the end,
Oh.
the beams cracked there if you cut them in a very specific way. So that was kind of sad, saying like, okay, another challenge.
Ugh.
But yeah, if you have like if you want to recycle plastic at home or in your fab lab or hackerspace, um, if you can source the same type of plastic, yes, on the right, the pink
Oh, these
how do you call
ones.
that? in English. How is that called? I forgot the name.
The plastic or the bench or the
The bench, a bench. That's the word.
yeah.
Yes. If you zoom enough, you can see like if it was a
Oh
tree,
yeah, down here on the legs
the
and
color
stuff.
changes on to the outside. It's like
Mhm.
the section view, and it looks great. But sometimes the colors don't mix the right
Ah,
way because of the type. It's the same type of plastic but slightly different.
right.
Uh, but yeah, if any of you wants to recycle plastic, go to the Precious Plastic website. You will learn so much.
They're so
Uh,
cool. And there's all these
Super
different
cool.
groups on Instagram and stuff like Precious Plastic from this place, Precious Plastic France, Precious
Yes,
Plastic, different cities.
it's a global community, so you can start your own like Precious Plastic group in your hometown, and you can make your own products and contribute back because all of this is open source. So you don't need absolutely any investment in terms of how to design the machines. You have everything there, and that's what I love about this community. It's quite open, and you can and there are real businesses that
Uh-huh.
were created. There's people living out of recycled plastic, which is something I love. And you
Yeah.
can buy products made with different types of molds. I know there are some companies in Europe that have even improved these machines, and they got the CE certification. They have schools and universities buying these machines, and in fact, I also teach 3D printing at a university in Madrid. And
Huh.
this year, I
Cool.
ran a recycled plastic project with my students,
Ah.
architecture students, so they don't need to know anything about plastics.
Uh-huh.
And it was super exciting because they were like, they realized they could transform their waste into useful items, and we were designing for a couple of weeks, and it was super exciting. And it's like, maybe in the future you want to design buildings and use recycled plastic for the outlets, or for the roofing,
Yeah.
or whatever. They need to explore. We need to show people, old people, young people, everyone, that plastic can be recycled and transformed into super cool stuff.
Yeah.
It's
You're
about
just
that.
I can of course you're teaching classes because you never stop teaching people. You have this course, of course, on Introduction to 3D Design and Printing, and you've got a couple other ones on that platform on Domestika. But even on your Instagram and stuff, you're always saying things like 5 terrible things makers love doing, and like design is an iterative process, and all these different, recycle cardboard in 5 steps. 5 top makers you should follow today. 5 must-have tools when 3D printing. Okay, so A, you're amazing at social media, but also B, you're
Thank you very much.
always teaching people, and I love this. So if you know, people, if you're interested in getting into 3D printing and stuff, there's so much that you can learn from Agustín. And so, let's talk
Uh,
about oh, well, if you have something you'd particularly
No,
like to jump
I
into,
was going to repeat again that I'm super happy that the way you pronounce my name is right, is
yeah.
correct. So
Yay!
it's simply that I don't care about 3D printing right now. You got my name right.
Well, that's very flattering. Um, Tell us about the sort of how 3D printing gets involved in this. So you're 3D printing things out of recycled plastic, but then you're also using 3D printing to recycle cardboard. Tell us about this project.
Okay, so a couple of months ago, I teamed up with BuildBee, an online platform. You should check them, buildbee.com. Sorry for the ad here.
No problem.
And we decided to work on an upcycling project around 3D printing. Thankfully, we both focus on education, on how 3D printing can be used in an educational environment, schools, universities, at home with your kids, with friends. So we decided to design a project around parametric design and 3D printing, focused on recycling cardboard at
Mm.
home. So I took everything I learned uh, from recycling plastic and applied it to cardboard recycling. So I got another blender.
Mm.
Remember about the one I destroyed? I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I couldn't fix it, so I had to borrow another blender, and I ended up making this project where I used this to take the pictures, so they looked good. So if you think I spend way too much time creating content, I do stuff like this. Yes, I have a problem. I know. I this is ridiculous, but it's
What is
true.
that on there?
Uh,
Is it a
so this
magnet
is a
or?
piece of no, it's a piece of cardboard.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because when this is drying, and you
Uh-huh.
place it on some paper or on a desk, uh,
Ah,
the moisture goes to the piece of paper and it damages it, the surface.
right.
So if you have I used a backdrop, a piece of backdrop
Hmm.
to take the pictures. So yes, I damaged it because of that. Not sure if you're going to hear this, but
It sounds really good.
this is solid cardboard. This is 8 millimeters thick,
Wow.
and it's strong, and you can easily recycle it. It can go back to the blender, and you can transform it into something different. So with BuildBee, what we did was to design a parametric design in well, I used Autodesk Fusion 360 to design
Hmm.
it, and basically it's a mold design. And I shared the source file, so anyone can go to the software and simply change the size and make their own versions. And you can. The main thing with this is that you can easily customize it. So I designed a very like thin stamp that you place inside the mold, so you can add your own logo and you can actually
Ah.
sell what you make. Because one thing I realized is everyone is trying to make commercial products with their own 3D printers, and they try to make it as modular as possible. So in the end, people can make their own molds and sell the molds. People can sell their own cardboard products. And I want to spend the next 15 seconds mentioning I'm not the first person to make a recycled cardboard molds.
Hmm.
They've been online for ages, and I think it was 1 or 2 years ago. It was XYZ Seidan.
Hmm.
I'm really sorry if I mispronounce your name. Uh, and I dedicated the project to Seidan because he did almost all the research. And I was like, okay, I want to make a different version, my own designs. And I know some people were like, oh, it's not original. If you are trying to recycle, you don't need to be original. Just by recycling, that's more than enough. And I'm super happy about this because my main goal was to make a modular design, and I made it because I could easily transform this design, which is a pencil holder kind of,
Hmm.
into a box, a small box, which also this is compatible with a large pencil holder,
Hmm.
and a random tray, which is slightly warped. No one can see this, right now.
You've
And
got
all these designs
oh,
are
cool.
available for free online. I invite everyone to try this at home, especially during the holiday season. If you get many cardboard boxes, like buying from Amazon or wherever you're going to get a cardboard box, you can transform it into super cool stuff. And I already failed at home. Now it's your turn to take everything I learned, I documented, and do it right on the first try, hopefully.
So this is on Wiki Factory. I'm definitely gonna get into this. One thing that I do is I use a lot of, failed 3D prints for as little like holders for all kinds of random desk detritus and different
I do
projects
that
and stuff.
too.
And yeah, and I want to make like a smaller mold version of the mold that I can just make a ton of these little dishes and like make stuff out of them. I think it'd be really cool.
Yeah, all my drawers that are filled with hex keys, because like this is from my latest Instagram post, like terrible things maker do. We all have a ton of tools, especially hex keys if you have more than one 3D printer.
Uh-huh.
And I always 3D print some small containers with recycled plastic. Let me show you.
Mm.
So I have like
Ah!
6 of these on every drawer. It's full of random things. This is markers and some random things. And this was 3D printed using recycled plastic. This is I made it with the pellet extruder. So it doesn't look good, but it's functional and no one is going to see it. So,
I
well,
think it
now
looks
everyone
great. It
has
looks like
seen it.
spun glass, kind of.
Yes, yes. but some people hate that. They
Yeah, of
want
course,
smooth
yeah.
surface texture.
Yeah, yeah.
Haters gonna hate.
Yeah, it definitely depends on, like, what aesthetic you're going for, but I love it. I did find that XYZ Aiden person that you're talking about, so this is the recycled cardboard into anything with 3D printing. I think I saw this myself when I was getting into some recycling stuff.
Yes,
Um,
I love that project,
so cool.
and the way it's documented, it's this is a perfect maker project because it's accessible. You don't need many tools. Well, access to a 3D printer, although
Mm,
you could make some molds with wood. Like you don't really
yeah.
need a 3D printer. Although the best results you get them if you use a 3D printer, of course. Um, so yeah, if you are watching this, I dedicate this project to you. You're
Aw.
a great maker, and you inspire many people. Like all the people that are trying my project, it's all because of all the people that already tried this and documented it and shared it. So I was encouraged to do this. So yeah, I dedicate all my projects to all the makers that share content online and help me build my first 3D printer. We can go back
Yeah.
7 years.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
So tell us, there's another thing that you do with producing uh, physical objects. So you work for this company called Mayku. Can you tell us about that?
Yes. Okay. This morning I had a webinar where I had to explain what's Mayku. Mayku is a startup based in the UK, and they launched a Kickstarter campaign 6 years ago, and they launched this beautiful product called the Mayku Formbox. It's a vacuum forming machine, desktop vacuum forming machine, because it's small. Well, it's larger than this. Super cute. And I joined them this year. Yes, this year, although I've been a Formbox user for more than a year, and I work as a lead creator there. So I'm mostly in charge of all the educational content there. That, yes, I love 3D printing. I 3D print templates to use on the Formbox, and I have an example with me. So if you are not familiar with thermoforming or vacuum forming, check mayku.me and see what you can do, because we also launched a new product, the multiplier, a couple of months ago, and it's crazy. I love hardware. I can't stop making things. And yes, I make educational and technical content at Mayku. I'm the lead creator, and I've been playing with the new machine and the Formbox nonstop for the last 8 months. I
Wow.
love it. And
Like you got one of these before you were on the team, right?
yes, and I love that the fact that know you trust a company, and then you join it and you
Yeah.
get to sign an NDA and see all the secret stuff. That's the most
Could
exciting
be a
part of
good
it.
thing, could be a good bad thing. Sounds like it's a good thing in this
Yeah,
case.
yes. Super happy about joining Mayku, and yes, it's great because vacuum forming, and well, I've seen with the Formax has completely changed some industries, and it's weird because I made this transparent enclosure for an electronics project.
Yes.
This is called the Laser Chaser, and it's a super DIY uh, electronic laser. I'm not sure how to explain
Is
this.
it like
So
a
my
cat
cat
toy? Is it for
is a,
cats?
yeah, it's yes, it's for my cat.
Ah.
And my cat's here. Can I show my cat?
Yes, please.
It's asleep. Okay. She's called Luna. She's 5 years old and she's from Spain.
Ah,
You're a
oh, Luna,
celebrity. Okay, you're
hello.
staying here.
Oh, she's so
Um,
pretty.
no, what? Okay, she doesn't like being a celebrity. I'm really sorry. So
Fortunately, there's
with
some
a
glamour shots on your Instagram here. We can
oh
see
yes, of course, I forgot.
visual.
Yes, I'm obsessed with documenting uh, my cat's life. Besides 3D printing stuff, I can't believe we are showing this. But yes, I spent I work from home, so it's my work colleague, my
Mhm.
cat. And this weekend I got another cat which is sleeping,
Oh,
and yes,
congrats.
so I guess I will need to make another version of this one, so it can entertain two cats at the same time.
Mm.
But the fun thing, I'm getting distracted. To
Yeah.
make this, I 3D printed a template, which is this part. I 3D printed it on one of these machines. And vacuum forming has completely changed how some things are made. Not everything, of course, because 3D printing lives here in my heart. But vacuum forming and thermoforming in general is crazy. But what I realized when I joined Mayku is how much technology has changed the chocolate industry. Not sure if you can
Ah,
go upwards. Well, yes, I have some content on my Instagram
that's
about
very
vacuum forming,
that's very cool. But
but it has completely changed the chocolate industry. It's
mhm.
crazy. For the multiplier, make a multiplier launch. Okay, there. That's I have a 3D model of that. I
Wow.
designed that on Fusion 360. We
Uh-huh.
made some. We 3D printed some templates. We made the
Wow.
molds, and the chocolatier, Philip Curry.
Ah.
I love you, Philip Curry. At Harrods made it, and I can't believe how easy it is to make custom molds for that specific industry. Like thermoforming has changed the custom mold making process. It has changed it so much as
Mm.
3D printing changed the prototyping industry in industrial design.
Wow.
The way it has reduced the lead time and the costs while offering a very similar quality is simply crazy. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying this because I work at Mayku. I'm saying this because
But you
I
work at
know,
Mako because you think you believe this.
yeah, I believe this. And this morning at the webinar, someone was asking some questions. I showed some examples, and they were like, "Okay, I just got bought the machine. I need
Mm.
it." And what I love about Mayku is that we have a mission. It's like power to the makers, and we like I don't know a lot about electronics. I'm really sorry, and I apologize because I know like
It's fine.
no I every month I go to Hackster. I'm like, okay, what project am I trying and abandoning this month? Um, but many different industries, we are seeing how new machines, new startups are launching products that change those industries, that change how things are made. Because a large, like up until
Mm.
some years ago, you had to get a massive vacuum forming machine, super expensive, and a small chocolatier or a person that works in the crafts industry, like making candles or soap or bath bombs, they couldn't afford that, and they didn't have the place in their studio. And with the initial with the first lockdown last year, too many lockdowns, at Mako we've seen how the formbox and the multiplier allow these small makers that want to try something new. We give them the chance to get the machine, it completely changes their lives. In fact, we are now collaborating with some makers that had a completely different job 18 months ago, and thanks to being able to
Wow.
make things at home,
Mhm.
now that they run their own company, and
Ah.
and I'm super happy about them. Like, how can I help you become a millionaire by
Mm.
making super incredible stuff? And that's what I love. In fact, in some months ago in my Instagram, I decided to try something new. Like, it's not all about projects and 3D printing like I love making. I try to focus a little bit on the community.
Mm.
Well, it's what you do. You
Mm.
understand me.
Yeah.
um, and it's mostly I started this year like makers you have to follow, because we have a
Ah,
really
yes.
diverse community with different backgrounds and different interests. And as makers we should always try to follow a very wide group of makers. And that's why I started recommending people that work with epoxy resin, people that make custom chocolates, because that's still making. There's technology involved, there's creativity involved. So but by sharing this, I try to tell people, or the people that follow me,
Mm.
like, hey, you should try this, because you can
Yeah.
combine 3D printing and vacuum forming to make, I don't know.
You have all
Maybe
these
you can
guides
try.
for
yes, maybe you can transform your favorite electronic board. Like, I love Arduino Uno. You can make
Yeah.
chocolates shaped like an Arduino Uno. And I love this. It's like making in, like 1 year ago, I did a ceramics, a pottery workshop, and
Uh-huh.
I loved it. And it was only during the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. And on Saturday, I learned the basics. I failed so much, and I studied art for 4 years.
Ah,
But
oh, that's why it's
but
so everything you make is so
but
pretty.
I told the instructor I'm into 3D printing and I want to make a custom stamp. And on Sunday, I arrived with a custom stamp, and they were like, "Are you kidding me? Like, making a custom stamp in this industry is super expensive and super slow, and maybe the minimum order quantity is like you need to get 20." And I was like, "Don't worry, share with me your logo, and next week when I come back to pick my super fancy pottery, I will give you a couple of
Yeah.
stamps, 3D printed stamps." And that's how 3D printing, vacuum forming, and whatever technology you can find online nowadays is changing the traditional uh, industries that don't want or that don't know about the latest additive manufacturing tools.
It's so good. And let's talk about this one. So you just mentioned your transparent enclosure there, which there's tons to talk about on that front. But yeah, let's focus in on this because I think for people who are building electronics, like you're saying, to be able to create, for example, a custom enclosure with this kind of a thing, you can create the enclosure once, make the mold, and then replicate it over and over again, and in a transparent way. Which 3D printing something so that it's transparent can be a huge pain in the butt. Like, it's really hard to make something actually
Yes.
optically clear. But with this system, you can. And so here's your example with the laser chaser. Um, and I'd love for you to tell us about this.
Okay, so the laser chaser project, we worked on this with some friends, and the idea was to make more copies. We ended up not making too many. Like, this is like makers, we start a lot of projects, we don't finish, like maybe we finish 5% of them. And this wasn't the case, but almost, because the idea was to make one template, and then with vacuum forming with the form box we could replicate the enclosure. And this is maybe this weighs the enclosure 10 grams. But if
Yes.
I don't have it with me right now, but the 3D printed version, first, it's not transparent, so it's not um, kid friendly, or it's not so focused on
You
the
can't
from
learn
an
from it.
educational point of view.
Yeah.
But this is so much faster. If you want to manufacture 10, 20, 30 enclosures and you want a transparent parts, you should try vacuum forming. It's the answer. It was the answer for me. And I know my cat is not going to destroy this. The My students aren't going to have the need to disassemble it and break it, because this is quite fragile, to be honest. This is a final version, but it looks like a prototype.
Hmm.
and and if you want to know more, I documented this in the Mayku blog. There's a
Hmm.
whole I have a sort of a step-by-step guide on how I designed this, and the challenges I had to face in order to get a good result. And it's super interesting because most people think about vacuum forming as something you can use to prototype packaging, but we underestimate its value when designing enclosures. And if you grew up in the 90s, I had a transparent Game Boy, I still have it, and I love it. And we want it back. We want transparent enclosures for electronic stuff. We want to see the brain of the machine. And yeah, maybe
This
I
looks like
will
a
try
great
to.
blog post. Uh,
That's Is that the guide? Yes, that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
step
yeah.
by step guide. And there I sure what's the value. Like, from an educational point of view, it's quite valuable. If you want to manufacture 10 different prototypes, with this you can make the enclosures in under 30 minutes maybe. While if you
Yeah.
had to 3D print it, it would take you days. And
Yeah. Like this
a lot
multiplier
more
you're talking
plastic.
about, the one to many, like in just a few instants. And uh there's one other advantage as well. So I actually did a little bit of vacuum forming in the past for these carbon fiber spikes that became part of a prototype that I was doing for like a brainwave controlled mohawk kind of thing. And I actually still have them. And these are something that I carved out of wood. Not even 3D printed, just like carved out of wood and made these spikes and then like vacuum formed those and coated them in carbon fiber, and they're so light. Like you're saying,
Yes,
your one is 10 grams, especially for wearables and for other enclosures for things that need to be light. It's so light. And of
yes.
course they're like these are really tough because they're coated in carbon fiber. But they're also tough because they're light. They're not gonna fall on the floor and get damaged or anything like that. They're just like, and for wearables and for working with small motors, and if you're working with flex wire or something like Nitinol, like muscle wire or something like that, having something that's really lightweight but a completely custom shape, and then you can make infinity of them. It's really incredible.
In fact, we have many customers from the uh, prop making industry, and the main reason why they use vacuum forming is because it allows them to make super lightweight props.
Right. Huh.
And we have different materials available, but there are some form sheets which are white and you can easily paint them. So it's not that people are using the form box or any other vacuum forming machine to make molds and then cast, let's say, silicone or other materials to make the prop. You can use vacuum forming to make the final prop, and that's super fast. And I really like the reason how it's combined, because making a prop cosplay is about mastering many different techniques. And sometimes if you need to make a dragon scale, if you need to make 200 dragon scales, okay, you can 3D print them, but that costume is going to be quite heavy. Maybe you want to
Yeah.
try an alternative manufacturing method.
Ooh.
And I know from experience that vacuum forming is one of the best solutions there.
Oh my gosh, you've just blown my mind, because one thing that I've dreamed of making is a little robot with like little feathers or little scales. And what I've looked at so far are like beetle wings, like elytra they're called. The like beautiful iridescent green, blue beetle wing casings. Or I actually looked for acrylic nails that you can get at grocery stores that might I be able to like cover the robot in. But like you just said, dragon scales, I could just vacuum form a ton of them and cut them out. And like part of the problem with the other object options is that you have to drill them and be really careful with them. But with a vacuum formed version, I could just have a little hole punch, and I wouldn't have to worry about
Yes,
it cracking or anything.
it doesn't crack.
Ah! Plus, it's so here's a question. Vacuum forming is another form of thermoforming, similar to FDM printing. Are you able
Yes,
to recycle these sheets in your 3D printing situation?
yes, it could be possible. I
Huh.
like when I made this, I had to trim some excess plastic,
Uh-huh.
and I can also shred it. In this case, I wouldn't destroy the blender, which is quite positive, and I could use it to 3D print, because um, the materials we currently have for the form box are also available in the 3D printing industry. Like the form sheets are made out of HIPS, which I'm 3D printing right now with it. The clear sheets are made
Cool.
out of PETG, so again another material available. And this is a question we get every week. Like, is Mayku working on a compostable or super easily recyclable material? And the
Mhm.
answer is yes. Because
Mm.
thankfully, like everyone in the product team is interested in precious plastic, so we are always like geeking about recycled materials. And well, on my Instagram, you can see that I 3D printed a form box sheet out of recycled plastic with the 3D printer. That was like super
Yes!
the best crossover. Like, you can think about Spider-Man. No, the best crossover is 3D printing a sheet to then use with the with the form box.
Yeah.
It's much better.
Was it really thick? How did it work in the vacuum forming mold? Uh,
It was challenging.
mm.
Let's say I can improve the process, because PLA, when you 3D print it, yeah, when you hit it on the form box, Okay, not.
Mm,
Give me a second.
mm. I'm trying to find this one that you're talking about where you 3D printed a sheet for the form box, but I'm not quite getting there yet. Mhm. Did we lose your connection or something? Or,
Okay, am I here?
yeah. Yep,
Okay,
yep, yep.
okay.
You're here.
So, sorry. I started listening to some music.
Oh.
You know what it is?
What's that?
Oh no, no. It was about the streaming. I got music. Okay,
Well, we
that's
didn't hear it
weird.
on this end.
Okay, okay, that's fine. Even better. I was just looking like a weird person listening to random music. Yes, that was the case. What was I talking about? Recycling. Yes, PLA is quite rigid as a material,
Mm,
so it wasn't perfect for the vacuum forming process. It worked, uh, but I would try with PETG or HIPS plastic
mm,
next because it will offer a much better result. So yes, I'm still working on those experiments. The thing is, and this is something every maker struggles with, like, should I document my failures or only when I get all the process like perfectly dialed? Because I want to share these contents, but people would be like, oh yeah, but why are you sharing how to not do something? I want to learn how to actually be successful trying it. So yeah, it's mostly
I
about
don't
that.
know, it totally makes sense. If part of the way that you learn is by messing up, and then if you can learn from other people's mess ups, then maybe you don't have to do it yourself.
Yeah, yeah. When I document everything, I usually add like an appendix at the end saying things you
Ah.
shouldn't do.
Yeah,
Um,
like, get the troubleshooting thing at the end of
yeah,
the
but
document.
that's another thing is that, yeah, if I want to make this accessible, it's like, oh yeah, but you need a pellet extruder, a spare 3D printer, and then you need to have a vacuum forming machine. So it adds up, and I don't want to make people super angry, like, oh yeah, you sourced all that, so now you can't do it. It doesn't work. But
Mm.
no, the real answer is yes, it works. I've used the Formbox, and I may have tested the multiplier with recycled things. Don't tell my boss. I'm sorry about it because they weren't there to see me fail. But yeah, you can definitely try it, and it's the good thing about having an open material system. People can source materials, find the right settings, and make incredible stuff.
Yeah, and you share a lot of your settings and things here. Oh, that's a different thing. But for example, 5 tricks to 3D print faster. You're constantly sharing these tips for how to improve people's prints and things. So that's cool.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time creating these contents. I love seeing people actually learning from this because I like when you know a lot about something, you end up thinking, oh yeah, everyone knows about it. But in the end, you realize like people are still learning on the go. I still try different settings every single day when I'm trying to 3D print. So people struggle because 3D printing is slow. Okay, here you have 5 tips to 3D print faster. Maybe you knew four of these methods or
Mm,
tips and tricks, but the fifth one, that's new for you.
yeah.
So I'm trying to document everything, and thankfully, because of my introduction to 3D printing course on Domestika, I get to see all those students struggling with their first print
Yeah.
or getting used to the 3D printing workflow. And I learn from them like, okay, if I see every month 50 of you struggling with bed addition of the first layer,
Hmm.
let's work on a massive guide on how to fix that.
Yeah.
And the moment, like after a couple of months, you realize no one is asking about bed addition issues, and it's because they find that guide and it actually solves their problem.
Yeah.
It makes my day. And yes, I love sharing educational content. I can't stop doing it. It's addictive.
Well,
I'm
it's
sorry.
good problems.
Yes, yes, the community loves that. But it's so
Awesome.
thanks because of how much the maker community shares that I feel like I want to do this. I want to be a part of it. And when you find a forum and it's an old thread of someone asking your exact same
Oh, yeah.
problem, and you see
And
someone
there's
that
no
2 years later they shared the solution because they wanted to. I'm like, I love your random user, and I want to be that person. I try to. So yeah, every content I create for my students, maybe sooner than later, I share it online on Instagram, on
Mm,
Mayku's websites, on Wikifactory, on Instructables, Hackster, everywhere. So people can find it in
yeah.
5, 10, 15 years. That's the
And it
goal.
really is everywhere. It's like you never know which of these platforms are going to stick around, and so there's Instagram, Wikifactory,
It,
Domestika, Patreon, Instagram, all these different things. I just found your recycled plastic vacuum forming experiment on Twitter. I
oh
realized I had
yes,
this pulled up.
yeah,
So cool!
yes. Okay, and okay, this is
It's working
something
better than I expected.
super cool. I want to share. So before I that workshop happened before I joined Mayku, and I
Ah,
had to make my own DIY heat shield using like tinfoil. Is it called like
ah,
that? I'm not
yeah,
sure. Yes. Well, maybe you understood this.
yeah.
And
Tinfoil.
when I joined Mayku, they told me we are working on an accessory, so you don't need to make that DIY version, which worked.
Oh,
And they have it with me here, and this allows to use some high temperature materials. So people that got that machine years ago now with this accessory they can make more things, and I'm super
cool.
happy about it. Like when you identify a need, you join the company, you sign the NDA, and then you realize you're working on the right stuff. It
Yeah.
made me so happy.
Oh, that'd be amazing. So I have one more question for you. What would be the next tool that you would acquire to help with all of your projects and goals? So you're doing, you know, cardboard recycling with 3D printed molds. You're doing plastic recycling. You're doing so. Don't say a blender, but what would be the next tool that you would acquire that would make all this easier for you to make really cool stuff?
So my biggest struggle, I wouldn't say a physical tool, but
Hmm.
another, hmm, I
Yeah, it
don't
could be
know.
software or something else.
Yes, no, I would like to learn about programming. Like that's something I always
Mm,
try to learn, but I find it too difficult. And I love making physical things, but I we should also learn how to make digital things. Maybe I would like to learn more about 3D modeling. I want to learn about Blender, for example.
mm,
It's too complex. Like it's about having the right tools to go from idea to final design. And I'm quite happy with the machines I have at the moment. So I want to focus on the digital tools, software, even coding a little bit or
mm.
learning how to create organic shapes. Yeah, I
And then you'll
think
be able
I
to
would
make
like to.
oh, yeah. And the more that you know about that, the better you can use the machines that you have in more advanced ways.
Yes, I know that I'm like I have
Yeah.
the form box, I have 3D printers, but I use them always to make the same things. I'm like, I
Mm,
tell my friends, if you learn about 3D modeling, I will 3D print anything you want for free. Like I want to help you because maybe you have the idea, you know how to 3D model.
mhm.
So, for example, I have a friend that is definitely not watching this. Hola, Dani, that works at how is it called? Mediatonic. Do you know the game Fall Guys?
No.
Okay, he's one of the designers in charge of all the skins on the game, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I know about 3D modeling. I can 3D model better than anyone, but I want to 3D print it. Can you help me?" And I'm like, "I want to have your skills, and here have mine, have my machines." So
Nice.
we are like, well, he hasn't asked me to 3D print anything yet. I should insist, but that's the thing. I the next tool I want to get is a software. Definitely, I don't have
Mm.
any more space in my studio.
Awesome. So we're almost out of time. Is there anything else you'd like to throw in there before we wrap up?
Yes, I always do this. So many years ago, when I got into 3D printing, I had to ask my girlfriend for some money to buy my first 3D printer.
Uh-huh.
So I want to say thank you very much for the money.
Aw.
I gave her all the money back, but that's allowed me to get into 3D printing because yes, I was in uni. I didn't know how to manage my money, and yes, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't because she saw the opportunity to say, hey, maybe he's good at this. So thank you very much. I love
Aw.
you this much, maybe more than
Ah.
what you can see. And she's not going to watch this, but maybe in 10 years she sees this. So yes, that's the last thing, and the thing I repeat every time. Yes, there's people behind every maker, and they aren't on my Instagram, but yes, thanks everyone for your support. Make cool stuff, and if you have any 3D printing question, let me know.
Amazing. Absolutely. And everyone, you can follow Agustin on Instagram, Flowalistic. Lots of places at Flowalistic. You can also see
Yes,
Luna
everywhere.
and this. What's the new cat's name?
Michi.
Michi. Luna and Michi.
Michi.
That means road in Japanese, doesn't it? Maybe
I
not.
don't know. I didn't choose the name. It's a 13-year-old
Oh.
cat. So, yes, it's old school.
Cool. So then we have Wiki Factory with where PulpIt you can find all the files and stuff. Domestika courses on 3D printing,
I'm
Instructables on
everywhere.
plastic smoothies, uh, Twitter, Thingiverse. You've got a bunch of cool stuff on Twitter, Thingiverse that we didn't talk about, including like a little cat ring that's made out of recycled plastic. My Mini Factory, all kinds of stuff
Same
that you're sharing
projects
that.
on some
Yeah.
unique projects. Yes, I need to finish
Mm.
my website. So all the projects are in one place. I'm really
Mm.
sorry. I've been paying for my website, which is on maintenance mode for
I
years. Yes,
know that
bad
feeling.
decisions.
So
So
yeah.
yeah, that's it from my side. I like making
Mm.
stuff.
Yeah. You can learn more about using Mayku for making enclosures for electronics, what I think is just amazing. Support Agustin on Patreon. We've got the Precious Plastic website where there's all kinds of stuff about recycling plastic and BuildBee. Okay, thank you so much for joining us. This has been so marvelous. I've learned more about recycling stuff and I'm just so thrilled. Thanks again. Have an awesome rest of your day.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I
Yeah.
still can't believe I'm talking to you. So yes, I will continue with my life and think that I was dreaming.
Cool. See you, Gustavo, too. It's cool to have friends on here. All right, bye, everyone.